Hi, I'm Bernita Howard, the founder of SWAT, Survivors with the Testimony, coming tonight to bring awareness with real life stories, real life people on domestic violence. Just a little bit about who I am. I am an author, I am a mother, I am a wife, I am a child of the king. Um, but I am also a survivor of domestic violence. So I come tonight to bring awareness through my story, my and I have some awesome ladies coming tonight to help spread awareness through real life stories tonight on domestic violence, different forms of abuse. So I'm gonna ask Miss Cassandra to introduce herself to you all.
Hi, good evening. I am Cassandra Cherry. I am the founder and president of the Noah, which is a 501c3 located in the Dallas Fort Worth area in Texas. I too am a mother. I would like to consider myself God's favorite, but I know He got a lot of kids, so that's okay. And I'm just extremely happy to be here tonight to share awareness about domestic violence.
And Miss Charmaine, can you introduce yourself to our guests, please?
Yes, my name is Charmaine Marie, and I am a soul healer. I help women overcome past relationship trauma. I also have a nonprofit organization called Rainbows of Hope, and I help women with unexpected pregnancies, and I am also a author.
Awesome. So we're going to go into our conversation. As many of you know, we always talk about domestic violence. We are spreading awareness. Domestic violence is intimate partner abuse, where they abuse you, they can spit on you, hit you, and it's not always physical. We're going to talk about many different forms. Um, some may be financial, where your finances are used or held from you. There's also spiritual, where your spiritual beliefs can be used against you. There's sexual. um, just to let everybody know, no means no, no matter whether you're in a marriage, whether you're in a relationship. If a person tell you no, that's exactly what it means, no. um, then there's psychological and mental, where they play with your mental well-being and your psychological well-being. So if a person can't respect who you are, they cannot respect you. They don't respect your wishes. That is not the person that you want to be with. Would you ladies like to elaborate a little bit?
I would just say, I mean, I think that's very true, whether domestic violence is involved or not. Respect is a mutual thing. So, in any relationship, you want to be able to share, speak how you want to speak, obviously, respectfully, go where you want to go without being, I guess, told against your will, per se. So, respect is extremely important in any relationship.
Yes. So when I looked at the statistics, I know we're all in different areas. You have North Carolina, Mexico, Texas. So when I looked at the statistics, for domestic violence against women in Texas is 35.10%. And for men, it was 34.5%. In New Mexico, it was 29.10% against women, 34.4% against men. North Carolina against women was 19.3, but against men was 43.9%. That's a high number. And when I looked at a lot of times women, we will tell our stories, but these are men that are actually reporting abuse as well. And my heart goes out to them. But that's what I love about my organization is we don't just provide resources, just for the women, because we realized that the men had been affected as well. And so when I was looking at it, I was telling Cassandra when I was looking at, in-depth statistics, in North Carolina last year, we had 69 homicides. But, and I didn't look up our 2019. I couldn't find New Mexico's for 2020. But what was stunning to me was 2019 in Texas, it was 150 women killed by intimate partners. 30 men was killed by women, and one female and three men in same-sex relationships were killed due to domestic violence. And what really behooves me is people will say, well, why do you still tell your story if you've been healed? Um, if you forget that person, why do you tell your story? What is like your comeback when somebody asks you guys, why do you still tell your story? What do you say to them?
I think for me, that's real simple. It's because there are, for every person, for every time I tell my story, I'm sure there's 100 women that are being silent about what's happened to them. So for me, that's extremely simple. Everyone has the courage to share, but that's not something that everyone wants to share necessarily publicly. And so, in us being here sharing our story and our experience, the hope is that it gives other women or men the courage to speak up and shed light on what domestic violence is and what their experience may have been, so others know that they aren't alone.
I would say for me, I remember when God gave me the power of your story. And so a lot of people, they want to not talk about it, but these are things that we need to talk about as a community, as a people in order to heal. So there's a lot of people that have actually went through or may even be going through the same things that we have gone through, but they're just silent. And so that's something that happens when you do face or go through trauma, to really shut down the power of your voice and not to bring awareness to these situations so that we can, really heal and move forward and change our behavior. So for me, it's just really the power of your story. People need to speak up. They need to, really just tell their story, because really your story is not for you, it's for somebody else.
And you know what, Charmaine, you're so right to add to that. The one thing that came to mind as you spoke was um, what happens in this family stays in this family, or what happens in this house stays in this house, and the generational breakdown. So if I had abuse in my household with my parents and I was taught to never speak about it or never say what I saw, if I found myself in that situation as a full grown adult, then I'm probably going to be silent about it. So as we use our voice to speak up, hopefully it's encouraging people that have been silenced, not because they're afraid to speak out, but because maybe they were taught to be quiet about things.
Yeah, that's so true. Part of my story is, I know for me, when I even just speak my authentic self, sometimes in the past, my parents have told me I was disrespectful just for being who I am. And a lot of people, they don't know how to really show up, like you said, as being who they are. And so when things do happen in the family, people want you to be quiet about it. They don't want you to say certain things. So when you do talk about it, even when I wrote my book and I told my story, a lot of people that I put in my book, they were really upset about that. But that was my story, and I was not going to hold back for anybody, because that was things that I went through. And, the things that I did go through, it could possibly help somebody else.
Yeah, and you never know like who's really going through that, and they're just scared to voice their opinion. And what really gets me is a lot of times people, it's easier. One thing I've learned is it's easier for people to tell you not to tell your story because they are, and especially abusers, because they don't want people to see them in that manner. Um, Abusers are manipulators. They know how to treat you well in front of everybody, but behind closed doors, they're a completely different other person. And when we talk about abuse, a lot of times we'll talk about our spouses or whatever, but we have to be real with the situation. Some children, even now, some children's abusers are the person that's supposed to love them. That's their parents. Um, and during this pandemic, we've seen so much. We got to also think about like children when they went to school, they're home with those abusers. They don't get away from it. And so I much research that, just looking at affected. And even in my own situation, my daughters was affected by what I went through. And to watch your children go through abuse themselves, like now we got to break that generational curse, because I don't want it to trickle down to my grandsons and my granddaughters. So somewhere, and that's why this is important, really important for me, because like I lost a son through domestic violence. So when I'm speaking out, every time I speak out and tell my story, I feel like I'm doing this for him. Not just him, but my grandsons, my granddaughters. So they all know, listen, this is not okay. This is what my mother talked about. You know what I mean? So that's why this is important to me. So it's important that we tell our stories and we get the message across. So many, as Ms. Charmaine said, so many are suffering in silence. They don't want to say anything, and we've been there. I was ashamed about what I went through. I felt like so myself like, well, maybe if I wasn't from like a stable family, maybe I don't understand what he went through, but it still never gave him a right to put his hands on you.
Mhm.
So when you guys went through, did you find yourself like blaming yourself, or blaming somebody else? Did you take the blame completely off the abuser? What did you do when you was going through?
Oh yeah, definitely. For me, I definitely took the blame off of him, and I wanted to find a way. I wanted to fix it. Like everything was my fault, whether he said that or not. In my mind at that time, everything was my fault. And so, how do I fix it? How do I not make him angry? So, I'm walking on eggshells trying to do everything perfectly so that he doesn't get upset, or he doesn't ignore my phone call, or he doesn't just randomly snap. So, there was no at some point there was no accountability, or even really a thought that it was wrong. You kind of get swept up in the manipulation, and I don't want to say that it becomes normal, but you do kind of desensitize yourself to it. In a sense, it kind of becomes normal, and so you're just trying to um I guess mentally fight your way to keep your peace. At least that's what it was for me.
I know for
You
me,
mentioned,
when I actually went through narcissistic abuse, I pretty much it I didn't I blamed the both of us, because it takes two to tango. So I wasn't always perfect, and a lot of times we go through things or we stay in relationships So I know for me, when I got into the relationship, I was looking for stability, you know, and sometimes we go into things, we're looking for the wrong thing. The whole time I was in this marriage for 7 years, I was the stability. So sometimes we're looking for things that are outside of us when really the answers are within us. And so when I went through this situation of psychological narcissistic abuse, I really had to analyze the whole situation because even though I left my ex spouse because I found out he was a swinger, but after moving way out of the country too, and starting a business, and then all the secrets just came out the bag. And so when I left, I felt like I had every right to leave, you know? So I really wasn't blaming myself for leaving because we can't be accountable for other people's choices and their decisions. We have to pretty much we have to look within. So for me, I separated myself. I was no longer dealing with that type of a toxic behavior, abuse. And so I just really went within. I don't really think, we all deal with our own demons at the end of the day, you know? And so I was like, okay, he's just dealing with some stuff that I wasn't willing to accept. And that just was the total, that's total honesty. I wasn't going to deal with that. I was already spiritually in a different place in my life. So for me to have to deal with that, I would have to really be on a lower vibrational level. And I just really wasn't going to accept it. So I packed up, and when he came home, everything was gone. And and he had did things before, and I forgave. And so sometimes we love people so much that we unconditionally, where we are loving them, but it's hurting us. And so I just really had to wake up, and I just had to separate myself. So I don't really even blame him. He was just dealing with some things spiritually, that I wasn't gonna put up with.
And then sometimes we love people so much that we do to ourselves. You know, we forget about us because and I know as a mom, as a wife, as a woman, we're nurturers. Like we feel like we could just fix people that don't want to be fixed. And in my situation, I kept saying, well, it's going to get better. He's just dealing with some things. It's going to get better. But I never seen that in my home. So when it first happened for me, it threw me off. And I'm like, whoa, is this what really happens? Um, and when became like a consistent, I was like, wait, this something's not right, to a point where you're bruising me up and trying to pull me away from my family. Um, and I really didn't understand what I was going through because I was young, married, and I remember when the sheriff would come out, they was trying to get me help. But again, I think Miss Cassandra said it, we're taught in our homes, what goes on in our homes, stay in our home. And so, the saying, you're gonna bring another black brother down. But do I deserve to be beat and abused? And then, to feel guilty to press charges against you. I remember pressing charges, going through the whole ring, and then standing in a court saying, oh, well, he will convince me, but just tell him I need to do anger management. It didn't work, but I would still go. And then, he knew that I was real big on family because my sister had a really good marriage. My parents had been married, and so his thing to me is you're destroying our family. He put it all back on me. You're destroying our family. And I'm like, no, I was always taught you speak up for yourself. But in that relationship, when I would speak up, it will cause anger, uncontrollable anger, to the point where he was hitting, kicking me, beating on me. I mean, and it wasn't fair to me, but in reality, I kind of wanted my children to have what I had. Two-parent home, I wanted the same things, I was modeling what my parents had. But I also had to realize, as you stated before, Miss Sherman, he was dealing with his own demons. But I wasn't I wasn't born to be his punching bag.
Yeah, and
And
a
so
lot of
now that
women.
I'm go ahead, Miss Charmaine.
Oh, I was going to say a lot of women, they are married and they are in abusive relationships with their spouse and they continue to stay. And I feel like one of the reasons why I left every relationship that I've even left was for my kids, because I was not going to tolerate them to be around certain things. And so a lot of women, they feel like, oh, I want to save my husband. And, like you said, we as women are nurturers, but you cannot heal everybody, you know? And when kids grow up in toxic environments, like you said, it makes them go and do the same thing that, or get into these same situations. And then these curses just continue on and, to the third and fourth, fifth generation. So it's just, I just say for me, that's why I've always, every person I have walked away from relationship, it was for my kids, because I knew that I deserved better. And we just, as women, I think people are looking for love, but they need to find that love within themselves. And you cannot heal everybody's childhood wounds. So, sometimes people, they have to go through some detrimental work. They have to do the inner work as well, to really heal. And a lot of people, they don't want to put in the work. That's really why they continue to be damaged people, and they raise their kids in these toxic environments.
So to kind of piggyback off of that, talking about the blame piece and having children. So I had my child. My son's father is my abuser, and at the time, like during my pregnancy, that was absolutely horrible. In my mind, this is my first child, first and only. In my mind, I thought that I couldn't do it by myself. I also had a lot of thoughts about, well, if I've stayed this long, even before I ever got pregnant, why would I leave now that I'm having a child and bring up a child in a home with only one parent? While I was in it, that was my thought process. Now that I'm out of it, and as I began to come out of it, I fully grasp the concept of bringing up my child in a toxic environment isn't beneficial either. But during that time, while I'm, when you're in the midst of it and it feels like a dark cloud, you're really kind of that love bomb thing. Like you're so connected to this person that you can't see life without them. You can't see, especially if you're bringing a child into this world by yourself, first time, firstborn. I couldn't see that there was going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, that I could do it by myself. So for me personally, just giving the real, it was a struggle. It was a huge, huge struggle. But I recognized once I had my son and the violence continued, I can't say that it was anything but God. It was like a light bulb went off, and I realized this isn't healthy either. And if I wasn't willing to do it for myself, if I wasn't willing to leave and stay gone and completely get out of this relationship for myself, then I had to do it for my son. Otherwise, he was going to become him. In my mind, that's how I was thinking.
And statistics also say that if a child witness abuse the home, they'll either become an abuser, um, or they will advocate, like we're doing,
Mhm.
or they'll just overlook the signs, and they will attract those type of people. And so that's where we'll find the generational curses. If they start attracting those type of people, they'll think it's okay. Well, my mom has strength. My dad has strength to go through it. Okay, I'm going to have that same strength. But nowadays, people are dying, and it's actually being reported, you know? And so that's why even at 8 and 9 years old, I talk to my little sister, I talk to my nieces, I talk to my nephews, I talk to my grandsons. I tell them now, like, little boys don't hit girls.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys like the age difference with us or whatever. I remember growing up and a little boy hit you, they be like, oh, he like you. So some of that when I was going through my ex husband, I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna get better, or whatever. But it's also our responsibility now to teach our children about healthy relationships. Because if we don't, teach them now about healthy relationships, they're gonna fall prey, to some of the things that we did because, oh, well, mom got through it, or my dad got through it, or whatever. I'm having, yeah, I was having a whole conversation and did not realize I was on mute. I was having a whole conversation and did not realize I was on mute. I'm sorry. So I was saying, do you ladies talk to your children about healthy relationships? I know for me, I talk to my children and my grandchildren about it. Because I feel like now, because of everything that I went through, I don't want my children or grandchildren to ever go through it. So, even at like young ages, I think my youngest grandson is 5 or 6. I allow him to know that you can't hit little girls. That's not how you tell her you like her. You know, um, be verbal. Keep your hands to yourself. I don't play like the boys hitting girls. No, I don't play the girls hitting boys. I teach them now like boundaries. I teach them what healthy relationships are. Do you guys do the same thing with your children?
I do. I am a mother of three, and I have a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 9-year-old. And so I always tell my son, he's not to hit on his sisters, or even if they're just playing, like, don't play like that, So I'm very, I think for me in that area, I'm very strict because, and a lot of moms, they may feel like, well, because they're a single mom, they can't, set these certain standards or whatever right now. But this is the perfect time because we'd have the authority to raise our children, even as a single mom, by the word of God. So there are examples of and standards within the Bible that we can teach our children live by. Even as little girls, I teach my girls not to be I teach them to be quiet and gentle, and not to really be hitting on men, or I tell my kids to learn from me, learn from my experiences, learn from the things that I've been through. And so a lot of times we're ashamed of what we've been through, but if your kids was there, I'm sure they've seen something. So you want to be really authentic with them and let them know, like, hey, this is not, I wasn't in a good relationship at that time in my life, and that was one of the reasons why I got up and I walked away, so that I could be an example for you guys. So I most definitely, I do that with my children. I let them know, do not, even play like that, hit on each other or whatever. So I do for sure.
And I just have one, and he's 4. So I don't know if I would really say we have the relationship talks yet, but I definitely teach him healthy boundaries and respect. Respect is big for me. And so that doesn't just mean um, for females, that's just all the way around. And so I think when he gets to be a little bit older, then we definitely will start to have those relationship type conversations.
So can you ladies hear me? Okay. Um, so let's talk a little bit about what each of you went through. Um, Miss Charmaine, if you could give us just a snippet of your story, and then if we have questions, we'll ask them.
Okay, so about 10 years ago, I actually this is before I had children. I pretty much knew to wait on a spouse. That is what I was taught. A lot of people do not believe in that. They feel like it's the old biblical way or whatever, in this modern day age that we're in. But because I was impatient, I actually went out there looking for a man. And so I ended up picking up, I'm just going to be real trash. So if you go out there looking for, garbage, that's exactly what you're going to get, whether it's somebody else's man or he wasn't your man. So basically that's what you got. If a man do it too, if he does something like, cheating or whatever with his wife, and then he get with you, he's gonna do it to you as well. So I basically got in that relationship. I pretty much was a Christian at that time, and I knew not to marry somebody that was unequally yoked with me, and he was a Muslim. So that relationship was very toxic. We almost killed each other. We were always fighting. He was from Philadelphia. I was from Kansas City, Missouri. We both come from some ruthless places. And so I grew up in a toxic environment. And so we literally was like, going to kill each other. So I packed up and left when my daughter was 6 weeks old. And I moved back in with my mom during that time. And so after that, I I end up getting pregnant, by my first love, actually, that I was in a relationship when I was 17. When I was 17 in this relationship with him, it was very toxic and, we were always fighting. So it was a repetitive cycle. And so after that, I pretty much got into a marriage with an older guy. He was 20 years older than me. And so because my father wasn't there, I was looking for, you know, I guess I was looking for my father within him. And, he was military. And, when I met him, I thought that he actually was stable. And so when I got into this relationship, I was already a single mom and I had two children. And so I'm like, okay, I had just bought me a new home and everything. So the whole time I was married to this guy, it pretty much was, he saw me as an opportunity. So I was very young. I felt like in this relationship, actually coming out of it and going through the separation and now a divorce to this man, I felt like raped spiritually on every level, spiritually, mentally. I went through psychological abuse. I don't even, when God showed me what I went through or what I was actually in, because I guess he suffered from PSTD, so post traumatic stress disorder. And so when I had went through this, I really it was really devastating, because what happened was I was married to him for 7 years, and I honestly found out after moving my family of five out of the country to Mexico. I brought soul food to Mexico, started a soul food restaurant, and after, he was so jealous that he wanted to take over the business. And so he started abusing me. A lot of people did not know what I went through. They didn't know that I sold my house. That was my house before I had met that man. That was my house with me and my two children. And then I ended up getting pregnant with his son. And, I had a good job with in a government business, gave up my job, took my kids out of school, all because I wanted a new beginning, but also because I was tired of seeing this man, work like a slave. And so he moved me, and we moved our family way out of the country to Mexico. I started the business, and it was very successful, and I had a lot of support. And when I didn't know. I mean, I pretty much always knew, my intuition told me that he really was not in this relationship. We were married, but it was not, he was non-committal, you know. And I even found hotel receipts in the process, or yeah, the process of me moving to Mexico. So he had did things. And I had forgave him before, but I'm like, second time, no, I'm not forgiving you the second time. So after I had did all of that, and like I said, I left him, and I came when he came home from work. I had the house. It was clean. It was nothing in there. I was gone because I had did too much. I was pretty much the one that was I was like the provider of the household. I was holding things down financially. Out of those 7 years, he only took care of me two. I was always working. I'm a builder, so I'm always building. I'm always thinking about legacy long term for my children. And so after I pretty much did all of that, I found out that he was a swinger. So that was very devastating. And so when I look back at my life where I was at 26, I can say that it was lust, and so I had to walk away, because spiritually where I'm at now is not where I was at 25, 26 with two children. You know what I mean? So sometimes we thinking that people love us, and they're really just lusting for us. And so that really is what it was. And so it was really devastating. And then the fact that he moved in, I moved him in my house. I had no idea. After I left this relationship, God showed me all kinds of stuff. It's like the can of worms was just open about this man. And I didn't know who I married. And he had actually sold another woman's business in Charlotte, North Carolina, prior to us meeting each other. And she had 6 kids. So after he had did that, I was just like, everything was in his name. The business was in his name. So that's why, after I started it, he started to abuse me, and I was finding messages about him on Adult Friend Finder, and he's sleeping with couples. I mean, that was devastating. It really was. It was a huge heartbreak, and I pretty much had to put my heart. I had to heal my own heart. I had to, and by myself. I mean, think about being in a foreign country with 3 children, and the fact that my mom actually lives in Mexico. But when you have dealt with a narcissistic mother that is selfish, and a narcissistic father, so it's like, hey, I was his right choice, on top of me being the only child. So I was his a perfect target for him. And then the fact that I did not live around my family when he met me. I moved away from my family in Kansas City when I was 17. So it was just really devastating. So I actually that's pretty much my story. And now I'm a soul healer. I help other women to heal from past relationship trauma, and help them also prepare for inner intimacy, so that they can heal and not take all of that, garbage and mess into a new relationship, if you really want a spiritual connection. So that is really what I do. And even within being with the wrong people, or just being out there, I've had 3 abortions. So that's part of my story. And so now I have a organization called Rainbows of Hope, and I give back to single moms and moms that choose life for their children, because my second daughter, I was going to abort her, but I ended up choosing life for her. And I have not, I mean, out of all the things that I've went through, I cannot complain, because God, even this story that I had recently went through, I had already prophesied this. And I have a book coming out called Rejecting the Spirit of a Harlot. So it's really me breaking this curse that has been within my family bloodline prior to me probably being born, you know. And my mom and my dad, as a child, I seen them with different men and different women. and things like that. So, I took on their practices, and that was what I did. And I became a harlot. That is really why I'm writing this book, to really make women aware of the signs that they need to look for, when they're dealing with certain men, even if you're dating or courtship or whatever. You have to really follow your intuition and do not ignore the red flags, because I really, me leaving him, really, I just had dodged a bullet, you know.
So you said your last child is by your husband.
Yes, my son Jacob, he's with my husband.
Okay. And so do you guys co-parent at all?
No, so after dealing with the narcissistic abuse, I don't co-parent. I don't co-parent with none of my kids' fathers, because they all were domestic. So I don't feel like I have to pretty much repair something that I did. You know what I mean? I feel like I don't have to um, fix something that I didn't destroy. You know what I mean? So I know for me, after I went through that situation with my son's father, he basically ghosted me. But prior to him ghosting me, there was a woman that was texting my cell phone about my husband. So I feel like after that, I honestly changed my number and I moved. I literally left my husband in Mexico, and he's living with strangers now that he met on Craigslist. So if you feel like you could do all of that, and take from, I have a special needs child as well, and leave me in a foreign country with no income,
Mm.
financial abuse, I don't want to talk to you. And then he didn't want to deal with me because he knows the fact that I will expose him. He know I'm an author. He know I'm gonna tell this story. And so, I mean, I'm not reaching out to nobody that did all of that to me. I'm not. So if he feel like he want to be a parent, then hey, you can figure it out. My author page. I got so many pages on Facebook, and I'm sure he probably will watch this. Because narcissistic people, they stalk you. So,
Right.
but I'm not co-parenting with him. He has to first figure out how to get himself together. Because really what I was dealing with was some high level spiritual warfare. And anytime you are sleeping with the enemy that's supposed to be your spouse, this person I didn't know was doing spell work on me. And the same spell
Mm.
work that he was doing on me has now backfired on him. So you really have to be careful what you do to people and what words you speak on people. And I just really, he was all into, I guess bisexual. I don't know, but I mean, it had even been times where we were in the bed with my son and he was there masturbating. I'm not finna have my son around that. And so, yeah, when he came home, me and my kids were gone because, whatever, there was some things that happened in my family bloodline I was protecting my kids from. And I
Right.
wasn't
I
going to
understand.
allow, those things to happen to my kids. And so, and that was one of the reasons why he pretty much felt like he could take the business in the process of our separation. I never seen any money from the business or anything. Um, he felt as if, I mean, think about this. A lot of women, they go to work every day. I know I had a friend that, was going to work every day, leaving her kids at home with her boyfriend, and then she ended up coming home and he ended up dating her son. So had I cared about my business that much, ain't no telling if I would have left my kids with him, what he would have been doing. But he was just very possessive, very controlling, and didn't even want me around my son. He used to tell me things like, "You don't know how to give a little boy a bath." And so, I mean, it was a mess. It really was. And I'm so happy I'm out of it. And then, you know, my first ex-husband, he was a Muslim. So I don't even think that would even work far as us trying to be co-parents. And you know, ever since I had left him or separated from him, he's been in and out of prison. So it's like, and then, you know, the only one that has really I have really reached out to, or you know, we have talked about him seeing his daughter is, you know, my second child, her father. You know, he's the only really decent one out of the bunch. The other two, I didn't know them at all. You know.
So, Miss Cassandra, can you tell us a little of your story?
Yeah, there's so many facets to my story, but because you asked about the co-parenting, I will tell that piece of mine. So I moved to Dallas, Texas about 5 years ago, and I literally met the man of my dreams. And so I thought, extremely charming, extremely charismatic. We spent pretty much all our time together. And kind of like Tremaine talked about, I was a good target because I'm new to the area. I didn't have any family whatsoever. I just relocated. And it's just me. At the time, I didn't have a child. So it's just me. So he literally occupied all my time. But of course, while I'm in it, I'm thinking he just really likes me and we're just getting along great. And this is going to be an amazing relationship. Now, what I will say is there were several red flags that I ignored. I own that. I am fully accountable for that piece of it. I don't want to like diagnose anybody, but there definitely were a lot of highs and lows in like his mental state and just his personality. So I'm not sure if it was a depression thing or what specifically, but there were so many red flags that I ignored. And the reality is, it somewhat drew me closer. So we talked a little bit earlier about as women just being nurturers. So it drew me in closer, especially when he would never say that he was depressed, but like kind of seek that attention from me. So goes on and on. And eventually the relationship became physically abusive, and it did not take long. I mean, within 2 or 3 months of the relationship, it became physically abusive. We dated for about 2 years total. And towards the end, where I felt like I had reached my max and I was going to leave and actually leave for good, I found out I was pregnant. So it felt like at the time it took me back 10 steps because now, as I said earlier, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm here by myself. I don't have any family here. He's the only person that I know, really. Like, he's been my whole center. And so, if I'm going to have this child, then he needs to be there. And we need to do this together, despite of everything that I had already been through with him. And so I had my child. Fast forward, things do not get better. Continue with the physical, emotional, mental abuse across the board. And my son was probably about 5 months or so. I finally decided to leave. And it was because I left, and then he came back with the sweet talking and he wants to be a part of his son's life and all of this stuff. And I went back like literally for like a month. And then it started again. And so I said, I can't do this. I have to break free this time and I have to genuinely do it. So I literally went cold turkey. I'm not answering phone calls. I'm not answering the door if you show up. And that's what started to happen. He started to pop up at my house. be sitting in my parking garage when I would come home, and things escalated from there to the point that I had to go the legal route and get a protective order. Now, the reason I got a protective order is because my family was concerned and they knew I was here by myself. So that was their way of trying to talk me into making sure that I was safe. But in reality, the protective order caused a lot more grief for me. So I was awarded the protective order that included me, and it also named my son in the protective order. In the state of Texas, the standard protective order is like 200 yards. The judge increased it to like 1,000 yards. So anywhere that I was, even if he came in there, he had to leave. That's not in the standard. They added that. And again, they added my son into the order as well. It just wasn't on me. In the exact same 2 days of testifying for me, in the exact same hearing, the judge then said, after granting me the protective order, I'm also going to give him unsupervised visits of your infant son, who's about 5 or 6 months old at this point. So that completely it took my breath away. Like, I literally stopped breathing in the courtroom, because had I known that that was even an option, I wouldn't have went to get a protective order. I would have lived my life. I would have moved. I would have ran. I would not have done it. I just wouldn't. And I'm not saying, let me be very clear, I'm not saying that this is going to be everybody's experience. It is important to take the steps to protect yourself. And part of protecting yourself is documenting. So please don't misinterpret my experience and think that you should not get a protective order because that's going to happen to you. That's just my personal experience. Now, again, had I known, I probably wouldn't have done that. I probably would have just ran. I would have left the state. So fast forward even further, I have to co-parent with this man at this point because I got that protective order, because the judge decided to grant unsupervised visits. That automatically, in the state of Texas, put me in family court, where they got to make a permanent court order for visitation. So he has limited access currently with my son. And that road, so that journey continues because it's up and down. But I've obviously healed, and I have different tactics because I'm not in the space that I was in the beginning of all of this, or even when I was in that relationship, on how to navigate with him, how to deal with him. I really don't give him much. We don't have a lot of conversation because I know that that's how they draw you in. That's how they manipulate you. That's how they kind of knock you off your square and begin to argue with you and all of that. So I do my best to use the techniques that I've learned and just not really engage in that part. So from a co-parenting standpoint, to be continued, but I am doing obviously my best, because at the end of the day, a lot of states, may grant some visitation for the abuser, depending on how extensive your situation was.
So I remember, and this is why I asked, I remember having to co-parent with my abuser. That was the hardest thing. Um, Once he found out, a lot of people don't understand, like, for me, I didn't have sole custody of my children either. Once he took it to court, the judge granted us joint custody. And so my argument was, if he abused me, he will abuse them, you know? And it's crazy, but in the state of North Carolina, you just never know. He wouldn't pay child support, but he would pay an attorney to fight me. Um So my heart goes out to everybody with children. Not only that, there was a time and I told him, listen, I'm sick of going to court. Just give me $150 a month. And he ran this thing. I was all about money. No, what is $150 going to do for two children? Really nothing. I just wanted something where I didn't have to continue to take off work. We can get to an agreement. That was something that I felt like you can afford, or whatever. I wouldn't have to deal with you. You wouldn't have to deal with me. And then he also took me back to court to try to say that when he would come get the children, argumentative. No, I really don't want them going with you. I'm just doing this, but and I'm glad, Cassandra, you pointed that out. And I want to state this too. If you are getting a protection order, I always keep it 100 with people. A protection order is a piece of paper. As she stated, sometimes it do increase problems because you got people that's gonna stalk you, and now it's a little bit more in debt. They can um, stalk you through social media. Cyber stalking. It's not just like probably what we went through where they're showing up to the home. It that paper being served to them sometimes, give makes them angry. So um you have to change your way of doing things once you take that paper out. And I let women know all the time. If you leave your home and you turn white, baby, change. If you leave at 6:50 every day because he knows or she knows um they know your daily routine. They know when you go to work. They know when you have to change things. I mean, to stay safe, to protect you, it's worth changing. If you normally walk out at 5 o'clock, leave 5 minutes early. Take 30 minutes of PT. Do what you have to do. But I do know with some jobs, if you go to them and you let them know what you've been through or what you're going through, they do what they can to make it a safe haven for not just you, but everybody, you know, um, that is at that place of employment. And sometimes you just have to change up. And it's okay to start over. I tell my children all the time, it's okay to start over. I'd rather for you to start over than me to have to start over without you. So we do have Miss Loretta with us. Miss Loretta, can you introduce yourself a little bit to our viewers? And if you could give us just a short of your story.
Okay, certainly. First of all, good evening, everyone, and do apologize. I had things going on beyond my control. I am Loretta Petit. New Orleans is my hometown and born and raised. uh, Background is in broadcasting, also entrepreneur and independent scholar in the areas of management and leadership development. So I was married as a teen, got married as a teenager, and my husband wasn't that many years older than me, but I was still a teenager. And we didn't really know what marriage was about. We didn't understand really uh, the whole of what it takes to get along with someone. So as we, went into it, it started to become a battlefield physically. It's a physical battlefield. I think whenever the mood shifts or whatever, it would be some type of a beat down, which turned into a fight because I wasn't going to let it keep happening. And the worst part, I believe, of it all for us, we stayed in it for 12 years. I had friends who wanted to come over and wanted to share with us, and I never could, chance that because I never knew what his mood was going to be. Were they going to come into a war zone? And I called the police a lot until I got threatened. You call us again, we're going to take your children. And so I had to go park the children at a at a relative's house and deal with stuff, because he was in that fighting mode. And so we had that going on. Uh, we would bust the windshield of cars and I get drugged through the street, through the parking lot. It was just so embarrassing. It was so hurtful. It was just so demeaning. And it was just really a bad situation. And then I got to the point where I didn't want my children to hear this, to see this, the arguments. It just would not stop. So for 12 years, if you can imagine having to deal with this constantly, go to work with black eyes and busted lips, and to deal with all of that. So I realized I'm going to die here if I don't fight back. So I had to. And I remember that my mom was always getting beat by my dad. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe everyone's relationship is like this, right? So that's why I think I allowed it so long. But then the light bulb did go off. And so when it did go off, then we started having a challenge with him helping to take care of the children. So I told him, well, I'm going to have to take you to court. And he said, well, you do that. I had to do it, which cost me, time from work. And then when I had to get an attorney for legal separation, which cost me, some money. So it was just a lot of that going on. And, it was all for the sake of love that uh, I allowed it. And I thought it was the norm. I was raised by two women. Uh, my great aunt, my two great aunts, sisters who lived together. I stayed with my mom and dad for a while, but then I was shifted to them, and it was always peaceful at their house. So no one ever talked to me and say, "This is what it's going to take." Giving a little, taking a little. If someone hits you, you walk away, move on. No, I didn't have that talk. So I thought I was failing if I walked away. I thought I was going to be a failure. So I stayed. And I think at a certain point in time, when I had made up my mind, this could not persist. And so when it continued, I left for a weekend. Well, we had like about 15 separations, not all legal. But I left this last time. I said, I'm going to stay with my aunt for a weekend. And I went there for the weekend. And when I got back, he started accusing me of all kinds of things, started cussing me out, told me I wasn't going to leave the house. He was going to kill me that night. So when I finally got free, that was a wrap. I did not go back. The sweet talking, the try and get me to go somewhere with him and all that. Nope. I shut it all down because, as one of the sisters said earlier, all that conversation, you start getting pulled back into that thing. And that's why it was about 15 separations. Why do someone have to, why would a couple separate like 15 times? At some point, I think I was just a Pollyanna as it relates to marriage. And I did not realize it didn't take 15 times. But for me, obviously, it did. And then when I really made up my mind, I really made up my mind. And that was that. And that's the short part of the story. But yes, it was very embarrassing, very hurtful. I think my children were scarred by it as well, even though I tried to shield them, you know, and it was just more than any woman should have to take, much more. And I would never, ever uh, allow myself to be in a situation for that long if it's of that kind of intensity. Um, One of us could have died in the interim, Uh, and one of the things I say to my sisters, if it's that bad and you know when it's that bad, walk away rather than being taken away in a body bag.
And I agree. I'm going to piggyback on what she said because I'm here to spread awareness. But for me, when I had went through all of that stuff, that toxicity that I had went through with my ex-husband, you have to leave because I tried to run him over. So I was going to go to jail in Mexico. So, and something clicked him. I literally was going to run him over on his motorcycle. And I had it already made up in my mind and everything. That's how far he took it, you know. And just the fact that he didn't want to, his coward ways, he never said sorry for what he did or anything. Sometimes you have to get closure for yourself. But then something clicked in my head and was like, you know what, Charmaine, I left my kids at home. That's how bad I was going to run him over. So, and there are some, women out there or maybe men that may be dealing with, you know what I mean, a toxic woman that they have been through some things with. So, I mean, you can really push a person like, really to the limit. So if you know you're in a toxic relationship, it's better, like you said, to just walk away. So don't nobody go to jail or be in a body bag, you know. And another thing that she said for me, because we're talking about co-parenting. My oldest child is 9 years old. We're always taking the men to court, putting them on child support, and doing all of this stuff. For one thing, everybody is not suitable to be a parent. They're just not. So a lot of people, they're not, like I said, they're never going to tell you sorry. They're not going to call you. They don't care about their kids because they got all this other stuff going on in their life. And so, as a woman, you have to take responsibility for your actions. If you laid down and made your bed and you had kids, I know for me, I had a civil lawsuit case against my husband. But after everything I had went through, time, energy, losing money, sleep, heartbreak, all of that, who want to go to court after all of that? And sometimes it's really hard for us to just turn the other cheek. But in that situation, I literally walked away and did not do nothing. And there's a quote that I once read, and it says, defeat is an illusion when investment is peace. And so I just wanted peace. I have been through so much with this man. He took me through so much toxic stuff, in my life over those 7 years. I just wanted to get away so I can heal. You know what I mean? But I know for me, I'm not finna do all of that, taking people to court. It's too time consuming. We always take the men to court. If they want to see their children, they're going to have to take me to court or they're going to have to figure out how to get a hold of me. Because I'm not going to run around here and be trying to find people that got kids that they know need taken care of. You know what I'm saying? And even if I was to go to court, I've been the one that was taking care of my kids all of this time. So, hey, they're going to have to do what they have to do. I'm just not doing all of that. I live my life in peace, and that's just what it is. I'm really a solid person. So, it's
Yeah.
just too much. It's too
Well,
much. The
well,
court system.
I wanted to jump in if I could and say that we had situations where we had police called. We were in hospital. Had to go to the hospital. We had cuts. We had blood. We had. It was really a very very bad situation, and I think was angry for a long time. I was angry for a very long time. I couldn't talk about it without tearing up, without being angry enough to just to go find him and just do something crazy out of my mind. But I just want to say, as a testimony, God delivered me from all of that hurt and all of that anger, and that's why I can peacefully talk about it today. But it's been a long time. It wasn't like last year. It wasn't like 5 years ago. So the Lord has healed me, and I've been delivered from, feeling any kind of um, vengefulness. So, having said all of that, I can tell you this was like the worst marriage I had ever seen in my life. I mean, we loved each other, and people called it graveyard love, whereas we could not be together, but we didn't want to be apart. We fought it out. We bled. We cried. It was crazy. I don't know how that comes into a relationship, what kind of illogical emotions and attachment that is, but I just could not believe that was from the God I serve. So, you know, again, it was, to the point where I had to lower my head when I passed by people who saw the dramatic presentations that we would put on. And I'm always trying to fight back. I'm always trying to get him off me. I'm always trying to get away. And, you know, he was a military man. And later on in life, I'm finding out, well, military doesn't support that, but you got to get the right person to complain, because otherwise they'll just sweep it under the rug. Um, it was just, he said, well, I learned tactical. I learned how to use a weapon. I know I can kill you and I can cover it up easy. I mean, all those kinds of words. What is that to tell somebody that you love? So I think somewhere along the line, love shifted. We didn't know it. And it just got to a place where it looked like death was going to be imminent, um, for one of us. And it looked like it more like it was going to be for me. So I had to, it was time. It was time. It did not get better. It was toxic. It was, you know, it was hurtful. It was damaging. It was dangerous. And we have to know when we get to dangerous. When we get to dangerous, we don't go into his face and say, I'm leaving you. No, you just quietly, as a wise woman told me, she said, mark the date on your calendar that you're leaving. Prepare what you need to prepare to
Mm-hmm.
leave. You don't have to say anything, don't have to make an announcement. Just go through the motions as you always did. But you have that date on the calendar. You have planned for that date because it's not getting better. I had planned for that date. I knew when I was leaving. But before I could get to that date, he acted up really bad and started to threaten me. So I had to move out before I was totally ready. But I had already started breaking down on the inside and knew I needed to make a break. And we have to do that. We can't stand by and be another statistic on the news. We have to know when we're at a dangerous place.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you ladies this, because for me, um, I stay quiet 21 years. I've only been telling my story over 5 years. And what made me tell my story was watching my daughter go through a domestic violence situation. And I was scared I was going to lose my grandson. I already lost a son. And so fearing for her, fearing for my grandson. So I fought with God. I was like, I'm not ready. I don't want anybody to know my business. I'm ashamed, and you want me to tell people like how they're supposed to help people. Like, and I talked to God so real. Listen, I'm shy. I don't want to talk to people. I want to be around people. But now you want me to come tell them my business. I don't want to do that. And so I began to tell God how people was going to look at me. This is what people going to say about me. I was worried about what everybody was going to say. I was worried about um the his reaction, what he was going to do. And I remember going to counseling, and I told her, I remember telling my counselor, I said, listen, I was asked to tell my story. I said, but I ain't said, I talk to God and he keep telling me to do it, but I don't think he really talking to me. I don't want to do that. But nevertheless, 5 years later, I've been telling it strong for 5 years. Um, but it took counseling for me. It took the spiritual counseling. It took the psychological counseling. It took all of that for me. Did any of you go through counseling? For me, I still go through. I'm still going to counseling. Um, because I realized September of last year was the first time I had been back around my children's father. And what happened was my daughter was giving my grandson a birthday party. And she said, Mom, my dad is coming. Hadn't been around him in forever, since 2004, to be honest. And so I was like, okay, God, I feel like I'm healed, I got this. But the closer that day came, and when that day came, I was like, I don't think I want to go. I don't want to be around him. And I remember sitting there at the table. He came up and, he asked for our granddaughter I was holding. Like, I knew then I wasn't as healed as I thought I was, if that makes sense. So I knew then, I had to continue my therapy. I had to seek God because a rage came in me and it was like, I gotta talk to you. I can't, you know, um, even though he didn't say anything out of the way, I just didn't want him in my presence, because I began to think about like all the things you've done to me. And so I began to tell my therapist that, and she said, we're not healed. So, I done more sessions or whatever. So, have any of you gone through sessions, Cassandra, being that you are co-parenting? Do you do therapy? If you do, like, how do you like, do you find yourself having to go more when it's time for him to get the baby? How do
So
your
that's a
therapy
very,
go if you do?
that's a very good question. Yes, 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 and yes. I am a huge advocate for therapy, and not only from the standpoint of helping me heal. So let me also be clear. I'm a huge advocate of those who have been through traumatic experiences, having a counselor that specializes in trauma as well. Um, so yes, I am consistently going to therapy. In the very beginning, when I started having to do the visits and let my precious little baby go, it was extremely hard. I mean, it would be like anxiety basically. Like my heart's beating fast. I don't even want to have to be in his presence or in his face. I didn't know how to, if he said anything to me, how to respond. But therapy has taught me a lot of different techniques to handle my own emotions because that's the only thing I can control. I can't control him. I can't control what he says. I can't control how he responds. So therapy has given me an opportunity to learn different techniques of how to handle my own emotions and to dig a whole lot deeper into, just some of my childhood experiences and things that may have led me up to being in an abusive relationship. So I'm a huge advocate for therapy.
And I'll say to anyone, if you're seeking therapy, it's okay to interview them. Um, I, my first couple of ones, we didn't mix at all. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, I'm not going back to them. They're taking my money. Literally, it wasn't an open field, meaning I wasn't going to tell them anything, so they wasn't going to help me anyway. And but my therapist see now, I remember going in there and I viewed her the same way I have viewed all the other ones. And I remember her saying to me is, the only way that I can help you, you got to be willing to talk. But if you don't, sit over there and I'm going to get paid at the end of this session. What do you want to do? And I looked at that little short lady. I'm like, this lady is mouthy. But then she said, your healing will come when you're ready. It's nothing I can do to help you. I can't even begin to give you techniques to help you if you're not going to talk to me. And so I said that to say this: if you're looking for a therapist, if you haven't found a therapist, baby, take interview them. It's okay to say this don't fit me. It's okay. If you get in there, y'all can relate. You feel like you're going somewhere, and then all of a sudden you don't feel like you're getting what you need. Find another one. But it's okay. And one thing that Cassandra said, if you're dealt with traumatic situations, you need someone who deals with trauma. Because if not, you're just going to be sitting on a couch and not get what you need. Miss Loretta, did you do any type of therapy?
I did not. I did not do any therapy at the time. I I guess I just did not believe in doing that. Today, I'm an advocate as well, not because I've experienced it, but because I know so many people who have and how they have been helped. But no, for me, I did not. I suffered through those years, suffered through those scars and the pain and the crying, and I went through all of that. It was like a withdrawal. I did that. I went through all of that. Did a lot of praying, and and God delivered me. God healed me. But yes, it was rough, and I had to go through it alone and still be mommy to my children, still try and keep them motivated and inspired, while myself on the inside, I'm having, like hurricanes and tornadoes and all of that on the inside. But yeah, I did not take that route. I didn't. My oldest daughter would tell me that I should have, but I didn't.
Miss Charmaine, what about you?
I can piggyback off of that. I just believe that the Holy Spirit is your counselor. And so even when I went through all of the traumatic events, even the recent one I went through, I mean, like I said, I was in a foreign country with three children. So you can just imagine all of the emotions and things that I went through. And so one of the things that I had to learn through that was how to love myself and how to master my emotions. Like Cassandra said, that was just, I mean, pretty much this is just a part of my story. I know my story. My story is not finished. So it was just a part of, it was just a learning process. And I believe that when you're put in a situation and you have dealt with trauma, and it's really God calling you into that leadership position so that you can help other people and really show them how to heal themselves. And I do that. I really believe in fasting. Fasting is a big deal to me because that is what I have went through even in my life, and it has truly healed me from a lot of things. So that's pretty much what I've done. I mean, even today with me telling my story, one of my children's father, he did reach out to me today, and he's like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Hi." So I'm waiting on his message to see what he is going to say, you know. Um, but yeah, for me, and I actually with my ex-husband, we tried to do counseling. He did not want to do counseling, and I honestly, I just believe that the Holy Spirit is sent to us to teach us and guide us, and really lead us into all truth. You can talk to people, and they can guide you, but as far as really helping you and healing you, you really have to get before God. So to really go through that inner work, and it's a process that you have to really go through.
So let me ask you, ladies, Miss Loretta, Miss Charmaine, if there is, I know that neither one of you went through like the therapy or the counseling, but if you would have someone that would go through domestic violence and would reach out to you now and would say, say, hey, I need therapy, what would you say to them?
That they would ask about therapy. I didn't get the full question.
So if we one now that would reach out to the both of you, either one of you, and say, hey, um, I've been through domestic violence, I think I need therapy. I think I need counseling. Would you encourage them to do it, or would you encourage them to go like the route that you went?
Oh no, I would not. I would not encourage anyone to go the route that I went. My route was awful. I mean, I would see a guy and a girl together on a bench at a park, and I'd go to boo-hooing. I mean, I'd go and have a whole meltdown. No, I would not ask anyone to do that. That was hard. It was harsh. I would encourage counseling. I really, really would, because if they can help you to dissect the thing that's really gnawing at you and know how to put it in its proper perspective and to know how to move on, all of that knowledge is what they will be needing. And the support to say, you're not the only one in this. People are in this kind of situation, and here's some of the things that data has proven has worked for some, and maybe these are some things that you can do. Give them some tools and give them some techniques. And yes, I believe that I would certainly recommend, and I have done that. I mean, I've talked to lots of women, mostly, about domestic violence situations, and I have recommended them to find someone who was trained in that area to really help them. I do biblical counseling, so I will share with you from the Word of God how to connect with God with your pain and with your sorrow and your
Mhm.
grief, and I would talk to people like that. But when you need, a little bit more than what I can offer you, or you don't have that kind of faith, then absolutely, I recommend that you try a clinical therapist.
Yeah, I totally agree because, some people are really dealing with some mental health issues. And I know that God is a healer, He can heal all things. But as she stated, that's what I do. I teach from a biblical perspective because that is the only thing that has truly been my foundation, which is Christ. And I come from a holiness church. I actually come from the streets. And so when I came out of the streets and I was introduced to the holiness church, the older women taught, to read the word for yourself, to, fast and pray and really get before God. People don't do that no more. I used to go to the Saturday meetings at, Elder Jesse's house, and we used to have prayer meetings. They don't do that no more. So a lot of people are dealing with some really deep psychological stuff. So, I mean, like you said, you can give people God, but they have to want God. They have to want the Spirit to be able to lead and guide them and teach them. And then also, they have the gift of faith. Everybody has different levels of faith. So, if you don't have certain gifts, you may not be able to receive what I have to offer. So, then you may have to, they may have to look at other options. So I just tell people whatever their journey is. My journey does not look like your journey. Everybody's journey is different. So it's just really up to that person. So I wouldn't say that I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, for me, it's just something I went for about what we went for like a week or two. And that still didn't work because at the end of the day, God is the only one that can change people. Man can't change people. You can go talk to people, but they're not going to be able to change your marriage or change that man. So or that woman. So that's just my take on it. But yeah, it's really up to the individual. But at the end of the day, God is the only one that can change us. And that's from, within.
All right, ladies, I want to say thank you so much on behalf of the organization for taking the time out to help spread awareness. It's closing in time for us because we don't want to keep people too long. So what I'm going to do is go around Miss Cassandra, then Miss Charmaine, and then Miss Loretta. We're gonna go around the table. I want you ladies to give our viewers some encouraging if they're going through. Just encourage them and also reiterate if you have a foundation, if you have an organization, um, whatever it is. But let's just give them some encouraging words, men or women that may watch or have watched the broadcast. Let's start with you, Miss Cassandra.
All right. Thank you again for having me on tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed this. My final words would just be to give yourself some grace. So, if you are in a relationship that you have recognized is toxic, and maybe you've tried to leave once, maybe you've tried to leave twice, three times, however many times, and you are discouraged or ashamed, just know that you are not alone. Our stories are very similar to your story, and we are here to provide you support and to help you navigate through that situation. So, again, I am in Dallas, Texas, and the name of my organization is the Ark of Noah, which is named after my little 4-year-old. And we are a 501c3 serving and for those impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault. Again, thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yeah, Miss Charmaine.
Thank you so much for having me. So, if I could leave you with words of encouragement on tonight, I would say if you did not get the proper loving that you needed as a child, know that there are other people out there that are like you, that you're not alone. Even though you may feel alone, you may be going through certain situations, you may not feel like you have anybody to talk to, but there are people out there that are spreading awareness, and we really truly love you. We are sending love to you, and I have an organization. I help women to choose life. And so, if you are a pregnant woman out there and you feel like you want to uh, commit having an abortion, know that there's other women that have been in the same situation like you, and they didn't. I don't care what situation it is. It's not bad. Your baby is a blessing, and so there are people like me that have a organization that will give you food for your family, or whatever situation, money if you need baby clothes. So yeah, I do baby baskets for the baby, and I do Pamper Me Pretty events for single moms, and we take them in a salon if you feel like you just need a day of pampering and you want to do some self care if you're pregnant. So I want to encourage women that are going through things right now, as far as domestic violence. If you're a pregnant woman and you need some assistance, please reach out to me, and we love you.
Awesome.
Miss Loretta.
Thank you as well, Vernita, for inviting me to be here. I enjoyed the ladies sharing their stories, their testimonies. I just like to leave these words with my brothers and my sisters especially. It's more of us, it seems, data has claimed than men in these kinds of upheaval situations in our marriages or relationships. I want to say that there's a thing called love language. Learn what yours is. Find out, what it is that you are expecting from a relationship. If you don't know what you're expecting, you just don't know um, when they're trying to give it to you. So understand the love languages and love yourself. It's very, very important. I had to learn that. I had to learn to love me. The things that were not so attractive, I had to love that too. So take time to know who you are. People will say, "Oh, I know me. I know who I am." Sometimes you don't, because you haven't taken any quiet time. You haven't you haven't questioned yourself. You haven't really got to the core of who you really are. And so I want to encourage you to know yourself, to love yourself, and to celebrate yourself, because you are special to God. You were not created by accident. You were created on purpose and for purpose. My organization is called Coffee. It's the Coffee Sisterhood Network. Coffee is an acronym for Christian Circle of Female Friends for Empowerment and Encouragement. And that's what we gather the ladies to do, to inspire each other, to encourage each other, to grow together, and to impact community together. Again, thank you, and may God bless you.
Awesome, ladies. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and just helping us spread awareness. Just to piggyback on what all the ladies said, um, SWAT is here to bring different organizations together. For one, we understand that we cannot do it alone. So it takes a village, and this is part of the village. And we want to say thank you to every organization out there that has sat at the round table to spread awareness. Um, if you are going through a domestic violence situation and you want to reach out to SWAT, our information is scrolling along the bottom of the broadcast. But nevertheless, you can always go to survivorswithatestimony.org, or you can contact us at 707-962-8738. You can always inbox any of us on Facebook, Twitter, um, YouTube, and our handle is SWAT Inc. 2020. I want to say to any male or female that's going through domestic violence, again, you are never alone. You do not have to be silent. We're here. We're here to help you. If you don't know whether or not you're in an abusive relationship, reach out to any of us. At the end of the day, it's not about what organization help. It's about being a help. And if you're in Texas, I don't have a problem saying, "Hey, Cassandra, I need some help." No matter where you are, just know that you're not alone. Just know that don't feel like you're at the end of the bridge. You don't have to jump, just reach out. We do ask that you just reach out, reach out, reach out. Um, Again, you're not alone. If you feel that you need to develop a safety plan and you don't know what you need, reach out to me. I will help you to develop your safety plan. Because at the end of the day, it's about you being safe and about you being in safety. Never feel that you're not worth it, because you are. Every single one of us is worth life. I say to anyone that's going through, and I say this from a mother's standpoint, your mother, your father, rather for you to leave the abusive relationship than to have to bury you. Love doesn't hurt. Love isn't love until you give it away. And not giving it away by hitting on you, because that's not love. Spitting on you, that's not love. Um, Putting you down is not love. Love is love. That person respects you. That person, make you feel your worth. They make you feel your value. They just make you feel, and you can be who you are in front of them. That's how you know what true love is. But if they have to beat you, they have to put you down, they have to isolate you, that's not love. So I'll say to you again, if you need help, reach out to any of us. That's what we're here for. Believe me, that's why we are all working with our 501c3s to give you help, to be able to help you. And again, thank you, ladies, for joining in. Thank you for allowing your testimonies to help somebody. Because even if we only get through to one, we have impacted a life that could have been taken. And so I do believe that God plants us here for reasons. And the Bible said that your testimony is your delight. So therefore, keep telling your stories wherever you go. Keep telling your stories, because if you dealt once, you've done enough. You all be blessed and have an awesome night.